Joining me now from Southern California, two-time World Series champ and host of the podcast Off the Cuff with Aubrey Huff. Aubrey, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Stephanie.
So, Aubrey, considering so many players have tested positive for coronavirus, do you think the season should have even started?
You know, I was very heavily critical of a lot of the players that opted out of the 2020 season, and now I kind of understand why. It's just from the very jump and very hard to get all these players to not only come with money, but the whole COVID situation. And I got a little bit of an inside scoop from this whole situation in Miami. I was told that what they had done is brought a player in to the Marlins clubhouse who had not yet been cleared for the COVID, and that's where the outbreak came from. And I also, because I'm very weary with this coronavirus. How deadly really is it? I know people have died from it, but from people that are in great shape, athletes, things of this nature, how is it really hitting them? And for me, from the guy I talked to that has in contact with all these players, they had very little to mild symptoms. Some didn't even know they had it. And to be quite honest, they were upset that they're not going to be able to play, because that's all these guys want to do is play baseball.
Yeah, and we know obviously the coronavirus is deadly. Over 150,000 people have passed away from coronavirus in our country, and we have so many cases. Cases continue to surge, of course, positive cases, and then what we don't talk about are the people who've recovered and the people who are just fine and have no symptoms at all. Now, as for the baseball players who opted out, what were your thoughts on when they started saying that they didn't want to play this season?
Well, for me, I was thinking to myself, oh, you guys are outside looking in as a regular fan. You're opting out of a season. You're making $20 million a year, and you're opting out. And people want to be distracted right now in the stands. People want to watch baseball, and I just didn't understand it at the time. But what I think has happened, and I think a lot of Major League Baseball players, especially conservative players, knew it was way beyond just the COVID-19 scare. I believe they didn't want to get on the field because they didn't want to have to put in this uncomfortable position of having to do the whole kneeling before the anthem, whether or not they're going to or not going to kneel. I got to tell you, Stephanie, if I'm in that clubhouse every day and I'd have to answer questions on whether or not I'm going to kneel for the anthem, it would get taxing. So in a lot of ways, I don't blame a lot of these guys for opting out.
But you really actually think that some of the athletes didn't want to return this season because they didn't want to have to take a knee or potentially be asked about that all day long?
You know, I just think there's a lot of the people that did opt out did have young children, wives that were pregnant. I understand that fear. I got to be honest, when this all came out, the first NBA player was contracted with COVID. My kids, I have two boys, we were getting ready to go do a baseball tournament down in Arizona, literally the next day. And I was scared. I didn't know what to think. And so for 2 weeks, I'm like living in my house, quarantining, masking up, thinking of, is this like the next Black Death? And as we've I started doing my own research, you haven't heard a whole lot of, healthy adults going down with this coronavirus. So, I would like to see these players in Miami. I would like to see them come out with all that they have, these social media apps, and they're so active and doing interviews. I would like to see exactly how they do feel. Now, there was one player out there that did come out and say that he never felt worse. He had a 140-degree temperature, and it was Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves. But don't we all get 104-degree fever when you have the flu? And he said his body never felt more hot. So, at some point, if we have this coronavirus, we're all going to have to face it eventually. And apparently, as we heard on Capitol Hill yesterday, we have all these doctors that were claiming that they're giving hydroxychloroquine, that's a tough word, to all of their patients. And it's working. They have claimed it's a cure. So you want a solution, Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, NHL athletes out there. Let's give all of our athletes a bottle of this stuff. And let's move on, because fans want to be distracted right now. They want to see their sports, but they also don't want to have to deal with the social justice warrior stances, the kneeling for the anthem. So it's it's a tough spot to be in.
Yes, sports certainly have become very political. I don't remember it like that, the good old days, especially when you were playing. Could you imagine having to play when things are so political?
You know, I never had a social media account when I played. I was very neutral. Obviously, I was a conservative. I grew up in Texas. That's how I was raised. And I intentionally made it that way, especially growing up and winning, actually in 2 World Series championships with the San Francisco Giants, which is the biggest liberal cesspool city out there. So I was very undercover. Yeah, I don't know. I always kept it intentionally away from social media. But now that I've got out of it and I see that what's going on in the country with the social justice kind of infiltrating into the sports realm, fans want to escape the distractions of politics and social justice stances on the outside world. They've had enough. They just want to see a game, go to a game without these multi-millionaire entitled athletes calling them racist. There's only so much that an average fan can take being called a racist before they're going to just stop going to the games.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that sports would be a great escape to get out from everything that's happening with work and politics and everything else. But now we have to get political lectures from the left in sports. So do you think this is going to ruin sports? I mean, what do you think the future of sports will be?
Oh, that's a great question, because I would love nothing more than to continue watching the NFL, America's pastime. Obviously, I love baseball. It's afforded me to be where I am today. I've been blessed in that way. But if they continue with these ridiculous kneeling for the anthem, because they are literally making upset the countless Americans, millions of Americans out there that believe that you are disrespecting a flag. And what I loved about what happened with Major League Baseball on the opening day is Major League Baseball gave every player an out. You can kneel for the Black Lives Matter cause prior to the anthem, and then they did the anthem in which majority of players did stand. And I found the opening day from the Giants and the Dodgers very interesting. It was a compelling story. All the Giants players were kneeling except for one man, Sam Coonrod. And this is a guy that's making $500,000 minimum salary, just trying to make the team. And then you look across at the Dodgers on the other side of the diamond. Their entire team is standing for the anthem, except for one man. And that's right, Mookie Betts, their 10-year, $365 million black man. Yeah, because he's so oppressed. And so I just found that fascinating, those two tales. And then you have a manager who's a black man for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Dave Roberts, who this man, I've known him for years, exudes class. He's sophisticated, just an amazing man. And then the white manager for the San Francisco Giants, Gabe Kapler, kneeling. And I just found that those parallels from those two teams, that division rival, that was a fascinating thing to see.
Yeah, well, no one should be kneeling. It's so shameful, and I hate to see it. Well, we're going to have to leave it here, Aubrey. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.